Welcome to Unbelievable Stories. Today's story is full of shocking twists and real drama. Subscribe and like to stay updated. Let's dive in.
Sophia had been gone for 6 years, yet it felt like just yesterday. I am Michael. I was married to Sophia for 10 years, 13 great and joyful years. Then, in one horrible stroke, it was over. Sophia had died in a tragic accident. She had gone to a corner shop for a few items to round off supper. She would only be gone a few minutes. The next thing I know, a police officer came knocking on our door with the local priest. There was an accident. Sophia was gone. I can't recall much after that. She'd pulled out in front of a truck, and the driver couldn't stop in time. They claimed to have been killed instantaneously. Numbness possessed me for more than a year. Friends attempted to get me out and about, but I stayed at home and brooded. The insurance money remained unspent in an account. I went to work each day silently, believing it was only a terrible dream. One day, I awoke to discover Sophia had vanished, never to be seen again. It was Monday. I phoned in ill and remained at home, weeping. After that painful awakening, it seemed that I had been furious and disoriented for quite some time. I decided that from that point on, I would live my life to the fullest since life was too short. Still, the emptiness inside me dogged and tortured me as I attempted to go ahead. 3 years later, I had dated a couple ladies and felt nothing. I behaved cold and distant. It wasn't them, it was me. I wasn't going to find someone to replace Sophia. I think deep down I couldn't let go of her at all. One day, I gave up on trying to find someone else. It wasn't working out, and I despised making people unhappy on our dates. I spent more time just roaming around Lakeside. I would visit museums, parks, and libraries to pass the time. I observed that I had been taking my walks on the outside of secure districts and to sections of town where most people would not stroll alone. Nobody worried me, nobody approached me or threatened me. I was left alone. During one trip, I observed a young girl wearing cut-off trousers and a pretty short top wandering around the steps of a rundown apartment complex. She didn't appear like she belonged there, light-skinned, with blonde hair and a good physique. An enormous guy emerged and began speaking to her. She seemed terrified of him, yet she stood close by, giving him some money. He handed her a tiny package and turned to go. She looked at me with a ghostly expression, terrified of her own shadow. Putting the package in her pocket, she began to stroll alongside me as I proceeded on my path, just behind and to one side. I sometimes caught sight of her. When we arrived at the park, she stayed nearby. There were some dodgy folks about, so I understood why she kept close to me. I was, in some ways, her protector. We strolled around the park, and on the other side, she came up with me and said, "Hey, mister, would you like some company?" You're not a cop or anything, are you?" I was surprised. At first, I wasn't sure she was talking to me, but then I understood she was making an offer. I was rather dumbfounded. "I'm not sure I know what you want." "Well, mister, I think I know what you'd like. I'm worth it too. I can show you a real good time, if you know what I mean. Young lady, you should be in school, not out here propositioning strangers. Hey, you're not my father, I just offered to make you feel better for a while, not lecture you on how I live." She turned away, leaving me standing there. I had just been approached by a girl who was young enough to be my daughter, if I had one. Did I seem so alone that she saw something in me that I didn't see in myself? Or did I simply appear like easy money for her to take? That experience lingered with me all weekend. I was astounded that someone as young as her would be doing tricks for a pimp. I found myself thinking about her and her past, what had driven her to this point. What had led her to start selling her body for money and drugs? The next week, I got preoccupied with work and getting contracts signed. After each workday, I returned home, worked on the details, and went to bed. I didn't walk much since I was too busy getting things done. That weekend, the contracts were signed, and I treated the clients to supper at an excellent restaurant. As we ate, I saw her. She strolled along the street, wearing a tight, short skirt and a low-cut, skin-tight blouse. She resembled a cheap hooker on the hunt. She was only in my view for a brief period. After dinner and a few drinks, I took my clients to their hotel and then returned home. On my way home, I took a little detour and drove along the street where I first saw her with her pimp. She was standing on the street corner, appearing like a small girl attempting to act like an adult. I pulled over, as a reflexive response. I wasn't sure what to say or what I was doing. I was lost. As she stared, she approached the passenger window. I rolled it down as she leaned in. What you looking for, mister? Oh, it's you. What do you want, man? Anna, I don't know. Talk? Sarah, you talk to me. I have to charge you, you know, mister. I charge by the hour or half hour. $85 will get you half an hour. Never mind, sorry to have bothered you. What the hell's your problem, man? Go to hell, prick. She jumped up and stormed out of the vehicle. I was shocked by her response. Then I remembered she was a hooker and time meant money for her. I rolled up the window and drove away. My acts concerned me. Why had I felt compelled to pull over and speak to her? What was I attempting to accomplish? I went home and set about, wondering whether I had gotten so desperate that I was willing to use prostitutes for pleasure. Sophia, deep within me, I recognized that was not the reason. I slept poorly for the following several nights, unable to get her out of my thoughts. One day at work, when I opened my desk drawer, it struck me. She resembled Sophia at that age, with the same hair and body type. How could I have been so blind not to notice this straight away? After that, I didn't see her again for quite some time. Then, one night, while walking, I saw a hunched figure on a park bench, wounds and bruises all over her face and shoulders, sobbing into unclean clothing. She looked like hell. I sat next to her, not touching, but near. She glanced at me with a combination of dread and distrust. I didn't say anything. Sitting there, I started to feel foolish. What was I doing? I did not know. She continued to weep before sobbing briefly. She started to get up. I extended my hand, giving her my handkerchief. You look hurt. Sarah, I take you to the hospital. Screw you. I can take care of myself. Go away. Leave me alone. I was just trying to help. Yeah, sure, just like Leon will help you, little girl. The next thing you know, here I am, a 507, hooked on narcotics, getting beat up for fun by my Johns. That's not what I meant. I want to help you. What can I do for you? Just leave me alone. You're all alike. Men use women like me and give us nothing but pain. Go away and leave me alone. Look, you're hurt and obviously without a roof over your head. I have some money, not a lot with me, but take it and at least get a motel room and something to eat. She grabbed the money from my hand, stared at me, then turned and hurried into the night. I sat there for a while, contemplating. I questioned my motivations, then my actions. I was deep in concentration when a shadow descended over me. Looking up, I saw a huge guy standing in front of me. Hey, man, you seen a sweet young thing around here? Blonde, short skirt, nice body. No, I haven't. Is she someone important to you? Haha, no, man, not important. She's just one of my 304s, you know. Leon's got the best 304s in town. So you're her pimp, then? Yeah, that's what I am. Little runaway on me earlier tonight. I need to teach her some manners. Surat be leaving the John, you know what I mean. Perhaps she doesn't want to work for you anymore, Leon. Oh, you don't get it, do you? She has to work for me, or she ain't working at all. That's the rule, you know. My turf, my girls, my 304s. Them's the rules. He left me sitting there. I was certain that if he discovered her, she'd be much more wounded. I needed to locate her before Leon did. I got up and took off in the direction I had seen her flee. I walked for an hour without seeing her at all. Giving up, I turned and began walking home. I decided to take a shortcut down a street I'd never been to before. As I strolled into the darkness, I heard something in the shadows near a trash. Listening, I realized it was a girl weeping. I approached and, in the faint light, saw her hunched on her knees in the building's corner. I reached down and grabbed her by the arm. You're coming with me to my place. You need a bath and some sleep in a nice warm bed. Why are you doing this? Don't you know what I am? What do you want from me? What are you, some kind of kinky scumsucker? Look, even I don't know why I am offering to help you. Linda knows you haven't been very friendly to me. I just can't leave you on the street for Leon to find later. Come on. In the morning, you can think about what you want. Right now, you need a bath and some rest. Michael, something on those bruises. I dragged her along with me. She went grudgingly, but calmly enough. As we got closer to my block, she started pulling back. I can't go with you. You live in a nice neighborhood. I can't be here. Your neighbors, they will not like me. Hey, I could care less what my neighbors think. Come on. You've made it this far. I may have some clothes that will fit you, my late wife's, but I think you two were the same size. I finally got her to my place and into the shower after some more fussing. I left her alone and walked into the closet. My wife's belongings were still hanging there. I hadn't managed to remove them yet. I like the fragrance of her in those clothing. I discovered a pair of pants and a blouse. Looking through a few drawers, I discovered underpants. I left the clothes at the bathroom door and walked into the kitchen to prepare a late supper for two. Just as I finished, she walked in and sat at the table, clean and fresh. Hannah looked rather attractive despite her scrapes and bruises, her hair in a long ponytail cascading down her back. I realized she hadn't worn her underpants. Chris, your bath soothing for you? Yeah. Why did you bring me to your home? You're not going to be a kinky scumsucker now, are you? No, I'm not a kinky scumsucker, as you say. I just wanted to try to help you in some way. You seemed, that is to say, look, I just wanted to help you because you looked like someone who needed it, that's all. Besides, if I were a kinky scumsucker like you were thinking, do you think I'd tell you that? Yeah, well, most people don't help like you do. The other day, you stopped by in your car. What was up with that? I honestly don't know. I guess I wanted to talk to you. Maybe I'm curious why you are doing what you do. I'll show you to your room. If you need anything during the night, just feel free to get what you want. I showed her the extra bedroom. While she was searching about, I retrieved more of my wife's clothing and delivered them to her. I kept bringing her clothing, dropping them off softly at the door to allow her some privacy. As I finished, Emma walked out of the room, holding up the garments I had given her. She stared at me with an inquisitive gaze. Your wife was just my size, she said quietly, running her fingertips over the blouse's fabric. Where is she? Did she leave you for someone else or something? The question struck me like a blow in the stomach. No, she died a few years ago, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. Oh. She stood uncomfortably for a minute. You still have her things in the closet and everything. Man, that's screwed up. You should have gotten rid of that stuff a long time ago. It's not good to keep things like that around. Theo just remind you. I could feel frustration building up. Thank you for the advice, doctor, I said forcefully. I'll remember it tomorrow. Good night. I moved away before she could say anything further. The following morning, I got up early and prepared breakfast, believing it would help to alleviate the discomfort of the night before. Emma strolled into the kitchen midway through, her eyes slightly red from sobbing. She was wearing a pair of my wife's old pants and a loose top. The garments suited her nearly exactly, creating an eerie likeness to Sophia. Good morning, Daniel, or do you prefer Michael? She said, attempting to seem casual. Michael is fine. My friends call me RY sometimes, I told him. Are you hungry? I made bacon and eggs. She sat down at the table and picked up a slice of bacon. While she ate, she continued looking about the kitchen. You keep a clean house for a guy, she said. It's a nice here. I shrugged. Emma, you have so much else to do when you're not working. So, Emma, are you seeing anyone? Dating, I mean. I inquired, half-jokingly attempting to shift the subject. She gave forth a faint, humorless chuckle. Me? No, I'm not exactly what you'd call girlfriend material, you know. Besides, I've had enough bad experiences to last a lifetime. I hated asking, but her comments stuck with me while we ate in quiet. When the lunch was over, Emma rose up and started helping me clear the dishes. As we worked together, her tone softened. You know, you're the first man to ever treat me decently, she told me. You've given me so much, and I haven't done anything to repay you. That isn't why I'm assisting you, I swiftly said. You don't owe me anything. I just want to see you on a better path, that's all. She paused washing the dish in her hand and glanced at me with a combination of doubt and hope. You really think I can get on a better path? I know you can, I said confidently. If you're willing to put in the work. She turned aside and dried her hands with a towel. I don't know. It's hard to imagine a different kind of life. Why not start small? I advised. Just take things one day at a time. Maybe even think about going back to school. It doesn't have to be anything fancy, but it's something to work toward. She chewed her lip, as if contemplating my idea. I wanted to be an engineer once, she said gently. I even started taking some classes before everything went downhill. You could still do it, I added, trying to seem hopeful. It's not too late. She laughed cruelly. Yeah, and what happens when people find out about my past? The drugs, the hooking. It's not exactly a resume builder, you know. Everyone has a past, Emma, I added softly. What matters is what you do now, moving forward. I'm offering to help you if you want it, no strings attached. She paused for a long time before ultimately nodding. I'll think about it, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Emma seemed to settle into a rhythm at my home during the course of the following weeks. I helped her enroll at a nearby community college, where she began taking engineering classes. She was apprehensive at first, but eventually grew more committed to her studies. I could sense resolve in her eyes as she worked on arithmetic problems late into the night. Our friendship remained platonic, yet an obvious intimacy developed between us. Jessica would gaze at me with an expression that I couldn't place, part wonder, half desire, maybe. Emma fell asleep on the sofa one night, her head resting on my shoulder, after a particularly intense study session. I felt my heart skip a beat as I glanced at her serene expression. I knew I was starting to fall for her, which worried me. She was considerably younger than me, and she was dealing with problems that I had just recently been aware of. The next morning, I found myself pacing in the kitchen, wondering what to do with these growing sentiments. Emma entered, yawning and stretching, and offered me a lazy grin. Ethan, Michael, she announced. You look like you didn't sleep much. Yeah, I was just thinking, I said, attempting to seem casual. She stepped up and laid a hand on my arm, her touch warm and comforting. Brian what? Brian us, I admitted, the words rushing out before I could stop them. Brian, where this is going. I don't know what to do with these feelings, Emma. You're just so much younger than me. She glanced at me for a minute, her face inscrutable. Then, without unexpectedly, she leaned forward and softly kissed my cheek. Maybe age doesn't matter as much as you think, she said quietly before turning away to get herself a cup of coffee. We became closer over time. It was as if the dam had burst and we could not stop what was happening between us. We'd speak for hours, telling tales about our lives, dreams, and regrets. Emma's perseverance astounded me. She had come so far in such a short period of time, but I knew there would be more hurdles ahead. Emma held my hand one evening when we were sitting on the back porch, watching the sunset. Michael, she said. I've been thinking about what you said. Brian starting over, about a new path. I think I'm ready. I gently clasped her hand. I'm proud of you, Emma. You've already taken the first steps, and that's the hardest part. She turned to face me, her eyes filled with unshed tears. I don't think I could have done it without you, she murmured. You've given me something I never thought I'd have again, hope. Before I could react, she leaned in and kissed me, and this time I returned the kiss. It was a kiss full of all the feelings we'd been suppressing for so long: fear, desire, hope, and love. As we drove away, I gazed into her eyes and saw a future I had never imagined possible, a future in which we might both find healing and, maybe, happiness. I love you, Emma, I whispered gently, feeling both terrified and liberated. I love you too, Michael, she said, and this time I knew we meant it. Jake, for the first time in years, made me feel like I wasn't living in the past. I was prepared to follow Emma wherever our road led us. The next several weeks flew by. Our connection, which had been gradually developing, suddenly expanded rapidly and strongly. We spent more and more time together, both inside and outside the home. Emma's studies at the community college kept her busy, but she always had time for us. I assisted her with her homework when I could, and we'd speak about her courses till late at night. Jessica would discuss her ambitions with me, such as projects she wanted to work on or organizations she loved in the engineering sector. Her enthusiasm was contagious. Paul, despite the pleasure and excitement of our newfound friendship, a darkness hung over us. Emma's history hung over her like a black cloud, and although she had made significant progress toward putting it behind, I could see that some days were more difficult for her than others. The trauma she had experienced, the addiction she had battled, these things did not fade suddenly. Emma awoke screaming, her voice rough and terrified. I hurried into her room and found her sitting up in bed, shaking. Hey, it's okay, I replied, sitting next to her and wrapped my arms around her. It was just a bad dream. She hid her face into my chest, her body still trembling. I keep seeing him, she muttered. Leon. He's there, in the shadows. He's coming for me. I clutched her hard, feeling a rush of rage against the guy who had tortured her for so long, even from beyond death. He can't hurt you anymore, Emma. He's gone. You're safe now. She glanced up at me, tears in her eyes. But what if I'm never free from him? What if I'm always haunted by what happened? You've already come so far, I told her. The nightmares will fade. It's going to take time, but you're strong. You can overcome this. Over the following 6 months, I made a concerted effort to assist Emma in every way imaginable. We went to therapy sessions jointly where we could express our emotions and tackle the trauma that still impacted her. I encouraged her to go at her own speed and reminded her that healing is not a linear process. Some days were better than others, and that's okay. Emma's confidence improved as she continued to do well in school. I could see the difference in her. She was more self-assured and optimistic about the future. We began seriously discussing the potential of her moving to a 4-year institution to seek a degree in mechanical engineering. She was apprehensive about leaving the little community college where she had found comfort, but I promised her that I would be there for her no matter what she chose. Emma laid her head on my shoulder and chatted quietly as we sat on the sofa one evening. Michael, I've been thinking about that offer you made a while back. The one where you said you'd help me go to school and get a fresh start. Oh. I think I'm ready. I want to transfer to Harvard. The decision caught me by surprise. Harvard? I inquired, gazing down at her. That's a big leap, Emma. But if that's what you want, I'll do everything I can to help make it happen. She nodded with conviction in her eyes. I know it won't be easy and I know it's far away, but I think it's the right move. I want to push myself and I need to know that I'm capable of more than what my past says I am. I kissed her forehead and grinned. You're more than capable, Emma. I'll help you with the application process. We'll make it happen. The weeks passed quickly as we worked on her application together. I was struck by her effort. She put herself into the essays and sought endorsements from her teachers, all of whom supported her choice. When the acceptance letter came, we all rejoiced at the good news. She had done it. She had been admitted into one of the country's most prominent institutions. As the commencement date approached, we started to prepare for a relocation. Emma seemed delighted, yet there was a trace of melancholy in her eyes as we discussed the future. I knew a part of her was apprehensive about leaving me behind, wondering whether our relationship could survive the distance. I shared same concerns, but I tried not to show it. A few evenings before she left, we sat on the back porch beneath a canopy of stars. Emma leaned toward me, her fingers securely gripping mine. Are you sure you're okay with this? She said, her voice barely audible. Emma, I want you to follow your dreams, I said. I'd be selfish to keep you here when you have the chance to achieve so much. We'll make it work. I can visit on weekends and there's always the holidays. It's not the end, just a new chapter. She nodded, but I could see tears in her eyes. Michael. I'm scared. What if things change between us? What if we can't make it work? Olivia will change, I told her, but that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. We'll adapt, just like we always have. And Emma, I love you. That's not going to change. We spent our last night together preparing supper, telling tales, and snuggling on the sofa. It was heartbreaking knowing that the pattern we had grown to like would soon be interrupted. As we lay in bed, Emma threw her arms around me and said, "Promise me you won't forget about me." I kissed her forehead. I could never forget you, Emma. You're a part of me now. The following morning, I helped her load the vehicle, attempting to keep the atmosphere light despite my aching heart. We hugged passionately before she got in the driver's seat. Drive safe, I replied, my voice revealing the anguish I was attempting to conceal. She offered me a courageous grin. I'll call you as soon as I get there. I love you, Michael. I love you too, Emma, I murmured, clutching her hand till she had to let go. As I watched her automobile leave the driveway, a mixture of pride and melancholy flooded over me. She was pursuing her ambitions and I could not have been more pleased, yet I immediately missed her. The first 2 weeks after she went were challenging, but we spoke often. We chatted every night and I planned to see her as frequently as possible. She informed me about her lessons, the new acquaintances she was meeting, and the difficulties she was facing. She was prospering in her new surroundings and despite the distance, I felt more connected to her than ever. One weekend, I traveled up to see her at Harvard. As I neared her dorm, she ran out to greet me, her face lighting up as she spotted me. We hugged warmly and all my anxieties slipped away. Our bond was stronger than it had ever been. "Welcome to my world," she added, smiling widely. "Let me show you around." The weekend sped by as we visited the campus together, and for a brief time, we felt like any other couple, enjoying life free of the responsibilities of the past. I could see how much she had developed, how much stronger and more confident she had gotten. As we said our goodbyes at the conclusion of our stay, Emma held me firmly, and I could sense her hesitation. She said, "Come back soon, okay?" "I will," I pledged. "And remember, no matter where you go, I'm always here for you." The distance wasn't easy, yet our love appeared to grow stronger with time. We continued to see one another whenever possible, and each reunion reminded us of why we were battling so hard to keep our love alive. It wasn't ideal, but it was genuine, and we were both eager to put up the effort to make it work. Emma was excelling in her academics, and I could not have been more pleased of the lady she was becoming. She was no longer the lost child I had rescued on the street, but a competent and ambitious young lady with a promising future. And, although our lives had brought us down separate routes, we had discovered a way to travel them together. Emma's progress at Harvard was extraordinary. She relished the difficulties, and even though engineering was difficult, she remained unwavering. Her grades were great, and she started to engage in research projects and internships, which provided her with important experience in her profession. I could hear the joy in her voice when she phoned to tell me about a breakthrough in one of her projects or a new opportunity that had come her way. We'd gotten into a groove. I saw her about once a month, and the weekends seemed like we were making up for missed time. We explored the local region, went to the seashore, and made occasional journeys up to wine country. It was almost like we were dating for the first time, with each reunion reigniting the flames that had begun while we were still living together. We never lost the excitement of being together, and even our time apart became something we learned to handle. However, as the months passed, the pressure of a long-distance romance started to wear on them. There were missed calls, cancelled visits due to job obligations, and moments when I could see Emma was anxious and distant. She had made some new acquaintances at Harvard, and although I was glad she was starting a life for herself, I was concerned that I was no longer an essential part of it. When I visited one weekend, we sat on the stairs outside her dorm as the sun sank. I sensed something was on her mind, so I grabbed for her hand. "Emma, is everything okay?" I inquired. She stopped, biting her lip before turning to face me. "Michael, I've been thinking. I don't want to lose what we have, but this distance is getting hard. I'm just so overwhelmed with school, and I know it's not fair to you." My heart fell. "Emma, you're doing great. I know things are tough right now, but we've managed to make it work so far. I don't want you to give up on us." "I'm not giving up," she said swiftly, her voice full of anguish. I don't know how to balance everything sometimes. And when you're not here, it feels like there's this empty space. I don't know how to fill it." "I understand," I said gently. "It's been hard for me too, but I love you and I want to be here for you in any way I can. We can make adjustments, find more ways to see each other, or I could even think about relocating if that would help." She stared at me, her eyes wide and surprised. "Relocate? But your job, your life is back there." "I don't want you to give everything up for me." "I wouldn't be giving up anything," I told her. "I'd be starting a new chapter with you. If that's what we need to make this work, then I'm willing to consider it." Emma went quiet, her gaze sliding away as she seemed to ponder the options. "Michael," she concluded at length, "I don't want you to uproot your whole life for me. I love you too much to let you do that without being sure." There it was, the rising doubt between us. I saw it in her eyes and heard it in her words. She was doubting not just our relationship, but also our future roles in one another's lives. I did not push her for an answer that night. Instead, I hugged her and told her that whatever occurred, we'd face it together. We did our best to maintain consistency throughout the following several months. I took time off work to spend more time with Emma, but it was evident that she was trying to juggle her academic life and our relationship. As her homework got more difficult, she had less time to devote to phone calls or visits. I tried to be tolerant, but the gaps between our discussions widened and I couldn't help but feel a feeling of drift. Emma contacted me one evening with a strained and exhausted voice. "Michael, I need to talk to you," she continued, and I could sense it wasn't going to be a good chat. "Emma, what's going on?" I questioned, my chest clenching. She let out a gasp and said, "I've been thinking a lot lately about us, about my future, and about where I'm heading. I'm starting to feel like I'm being pulled in two different directions. I love you, but I'm not sure I can keep doing this, Michael." I'm not sure I can give you what you deserve. The word struck me like a blow in the stomach. What are you saying? I questioned, striving to maintain a steady voice. I'm saying I need time to figure out who I am without being pulled in 1,000 different directions, she said, her voice shaking. I'm so focused on trying to keep us together and make school work at the same time that I feel like I'm failing at both. It's not fair to you, and it's not fair to me. I remained quiet for a time, taking in what she was saying. Emma, I understand if you need time, but please don't walk away from us, I said her. We can find a way to make this work. I'm not walking away, she sobbed. I just need some space to figure things out. I don't want us to end, but I think we need a break, a chance to see if this is what we really want. The remainder of the talk was a haze. I tried to comprehend her point of view, but it was like losing the person I loved all over again. We decided to take a break from the relationship and allow each other time to reflect. It was the most difficult choice I had ever taken, but I knew deep inside that pushing things would not benefit us. The days that followed were some of the most lonely I'd felt since Sophia's passing. I found myself pacing the house, gazing at my phone, waiting for Emma's message, which never arrived. I pushed myself into my job, trying to distract myself with other things, but the quiet times were the hardest. I missed her more than I could have imagined, and thinking about the life we may have had made my heart ache. Weeks passed with just intermittent touch. Emma texted me from time to time to let me know how she was doing, but her words had a distance to them that hadn't been there before. I wanted to call and visit her, but I knew I had to respect her desire for space. Then, one evening, after almost 4 months of stillness, Emma texted me, Michael, can we meet? I'd like to talk. My pulse raced as I responded, arranging to meet her halfway, at a cafe in a little town between my home and Harvard. I came early, my nerves on edge, unsure what to expect. When Emma went in, she seemed stronger and more at ease. She exuded a sense of tranquility that had not before existed. We sat across from one another, and she talked first. Michael, thank you for giving me the space I needed. I know it wasn't easy for you. I just wanted to know what you're thinking right now, I replied gently. Where do we stand? Emma took a big breath. I've had a lot of time to think, and I've realized that I needed this break more than I knew. It's given me a chance to focus on my goals, to figure out who I am and what I want. I've missed you, but I also feel like I've grown in ways I didn't expect. I listened, my chest squeezing as she said. So, where does that leave us? I inquired. It leaves us with a choice, she said, her eyes firm. I still love you, Michael. That hasn't changed. But I think we need to approach this differently if we're going to move forward. We can't go back to what we had before, we need to build something new, something stronger. I felt both relieved and apprehensive. I'm willing to try, Emma. I don't want to lose you. Then let's take it one step at a time, she whispered quietly, reaching across the table for my hand. No expectations, no pressure. Let's just see where this goes. As we sat there, holding hands across the table, I understood that, although things hadn't gone as planned, we still had an opportunity to create something meaningful. It would take time, tolerance, and a desire to adjust, but Emma was correct, we could not go back. We could only go on and face whatever happened next together. And as we left the cafe that day, I had a fresh feeling of optimism, knowing that we could still control our future, one step at a time. Following our cafe encounter, Emma and I started the painstaking process of restoring our friendship. We handled it day by day, focused on reconnecting without the stress of a committed relationship. It was like beginning again, rediscovering each other, but this time with a better awareness of our own needs and what we could provide. We communicated often, but we didn't hurry to see one another straight soon. Instead, we spent time discussing the little elements of our everyday lives, such as her Harvard experiences and my professional initiatives. It seemed more open and honest than it had before, as if we had finally shed the burden of expectation that had previously weighed over us. Emma immersed herself into her studies, and I could sense the confidence in her voice as she discussed the projects she was working on. Megan was especially enthusiastic about the mechanical engineering internship she had earned for the next summer at a tech business in the Bay Area. It was a significant step, and I could feel her delight in the achievement. Jake, for my part, I tried to remain grounded and focused on my job, but there were times when I missed her intensely. We had decided to keep our relationship informal and undefined for the time being, but my sentiments remained unchanged. I still loved her, and it became stronger with each talk we had and every detail of her life she revealed with me. We didn't see one another again for a few months until her spring vacation. Emma asked me to visit her in Palo Alto, where she lived in a little apartment close to university. Nerves crept in as I pulled up, but as she answered the door and welcomed me with a loving grin, my fears vanished. "Hey, Michael," she replied, putting her arms around me in an embrace that was both old and unfamiliar. "I'm really glad you're here." "Me too," I said, feeling comforted by her hug. We spent the weekend together, not hurrying anything and just enjoying one another's company. It was different than it had been before. Our relationship had matured, we had endured obstacles and emerged stronger. We freely discussed our issues throughout our time apart, and Emma recognized that she needed the space to regain her footing. "I needed to know who I was without relying on you," she said one evening as we sat in her living room drinking coffee. "I had to prove to myself that I could stand on my own 2 feet. "And did you?" I inquired, fully knowing the answer. She smiled, her eyes reflecting a combination of pride and humility. "Yes, I did. But this does not imply I don't want you in my life, Michael. I'm simply ready to do things differently now." We decided to take things gently, allowing our relationship to evolve organically without imposing hard limits or labels. It felt both liberated and terrible. There was no plan or promise, but we had learned to let go of the desire for certainty. As the summer neared, Emma prepared for her internship at the IT firm. I could see she was delighted, and it made me pleased to see her pursue her aspirations. We spent occasional weekends together when our schedules permitted, but we also respected one another's boundaries and obligations. It was a delicate balance, but we were regaining our groove. Her internship proved to be a tough but gratifying experience. She was working on a cutting-edge robotics project that integrated her mechanical engineering expertise with artificial intelligence. She'd phone me late at night, full of enthusiasm, and tell me about her successes and the failures she was learning to overcome. Her enthusiasm for the job was contagious, and I couldn't help but be pleased of how far she'd come. One evening, after a particularly hard day at work, Emma texted me, "Come visit this weekend. I miss you." I did not hesitate to respond. "Absolutely. I'll be there." That weekend was unique in the sense that it served as a watershed moment for us. When I arrived to a place, I saw that she had prepared a little meal for us, a simple but meaningful gesture that reminded me of our early days together. We ate, laughed, and caught up, and then reclined on the sofa, Emma resting her head on my shoulder. "Michael," she replied slowly, "I think I'm finally ready to define what we are." I turned to face her, my heart missing a beat. "What do you think we are?" I inquired, my voice calm but hopeful. She took a big breath. "I want to be with you," she replied, her eyes meeting mine with a confidence that hadn't existed before. "I don't want us to be stuck figuring it out anymore. I'm willing to commit to this, to us." I stretched for her hand and squeezed it softly. "I'm ready, too, Emma. I've always been ready." The remainder of the evening seemed like a celebration, as if we were kicking off a new chapter. We spoke about our future with greater conviction than ever before, imagining what it would be like to genuinely establish a life together. There were still many concerns to be answered, such as where we would ultimately reside, given Megan's work, which may put her in the Bay for the foreseeable future, but we vowed to tackle such choices together. Emma completed her internship at the end of the summer, having gained valuable experience and a greater sense of purpose. She still had 1 year at Harvard to get her degree, but she was already getting job offers and internship options after graduation. The choices appeared limitless, and I urged her to choose whatever route seemed best for her. Daniel put our relationship back on firm foundation, and I felt a feeling of calm and contentment that I hadn't had in a long time. We made arrangements to see each other more regularly, and I began to seriously consider moving to the Bay Megan once she graduated. I didn't make this choice lightly, but I realized that if I wanted to establish a life with Emma, I had to be where she was. Emma earned her mechanical engineering degree the following spring. I was in the audience, cheering her on as she walked across the stage, looking lovely and confident in her cap and gown. After the ceremony, I greeted her outside with a bunch of flowers. "Congratulations, graduate," I replied, offering her the flowers and pulled her in for a hug. She smiled up at me. "Thank you, Michael. I could not have done it without you." "I think you would have found a way," I said, my voice filled with pride. "But I'm glad I could be there to see it." We spent the day rejoicing with her friends and family, but later that evening, as we strolled together around the peaceful campus, Emma looked to me with a serious gaze. "You know, this place gave me a lot," she added, looking about at her familiar surroundings. "But I'm ready for what comes next." I nodded, understanding what she meant. "So am I," said. "And whatever it is, we'll face it together." Megan, that summer, I decided to migrate to the Bay. Emma and I selected a tiny apartment to share near where she would be working at a promising technology firm. It wasn't a large space, but it was ours, and it seemed like the start of something meaningful and permanent. Kevin provided both new problems and new delights. We learned to navigate one another's routines, share duties, and deal with the ups and downs of everyday living together. There were moments of anxiety when the weight of our history threatened to reappear, but we had become stronger. We had learned to communicate and support one another without losing ourselves in the process. And as the days became into months and then into years, our love grew stronger. We never hurried into marriage, but we spoke about it often, knowing that when the time was perfect, we'd take the plunge. Jake was finally satisfied, and so were we. We had battled life's challenges and uncertainties together and emerged stronger as a result. Emma was no longer the lost girl I had met in the shadows, nor was I the guy trapped in the past. We'd discovered one another in the midst of our brokenness and worked together to create something beautiful, day by day. And as I laid next to her each night, her hands softly resting in mine, I knew we'd be ready to face whatever came next together. If you love this story, remember to like, share, and subscribe for more emotional stories. Tom, see you next time.